everything was perfect according to plan until in a slow fade, just about 4 years into marriage, divorce papers were ready to be signed. Hello, beautiful people. Hi, my name is Juan Bonillia. I am Boricua, para que tú lo sepas. There's more Puerto Ricans here. That's great. That's awesome. But I've been a Cincinnati West Sider for 14 years now. Yeah, West Side. And part of the Crossroads community for the last 12 years. Growing up in Puerto Rico, you are bound to have a very interesting childhood. And mine was really no different. I grew up in a very, very loving home. My mom is an amazing person, and I have also a little brother as well, about 2 years younger than I am. But eventually, my parents got divorced when I was 5, and we had to move out of town because of work for my mom. She made huge sacrifices for us so that my brother and I could have the life that we had, the education that we had, and the experiences that we had. And I know, Mom, that you're watching this online, so I want to say, Mami, gracias por todo el sacrificio que hiciste. Te amo mucho. Every Friday, my grandparents would pick us up from my house, because you can't imagine having a single working mom that would go to work while we are at school, will pick us up from school, have to cook dinner, and then eventually get us into bed, while in the middle of we're just running around going like crazy in the house. So that the fact that my grandparents would pick us up from Friday to spend the weekend would allow her some breathing room, but also allows her to get another part-time job just to make ends meet. I grew up feeling so much love for my mom and admiration for my mom that I could almost forget that I didn't have a dad until I reached my teenage years. And for you men that are looking, you know that growing up and being at that age, there's a lot of things that are happening. I learned how to shave on my own. I learned what pornography was on my own. I learned changes in my body and kind of figure out how to deal with them on my own, or without a dad. So my only father figure was my grandpa, Papung. That's what I call him, and I would always call him Papung. He taught me about responsibility, and he taught me about being organized. And after all, he was an Air Force sergeant. So he was very GI, very military. However, coming Sundays, it was me, my grandma, and my brother that would go to Mass, and he would stay home. So even as I was preparing for this talk, I could not remember a deep conversation I had with him about God or about religion. So eventually, my mom started dating someone when later in my teenage years, and by that time, I almost was getting to go to college, and so I couldn't have this father-son bond with him. They are married right now, and they've been married for 20 years, and it's been amazing, and I love him so much. But because when the time that they got married, I was already in college, I couldn't close that gap. I couldn't close the gap that I had on a father-son. He's a great leader in my family, and I love him to death. Eventually, I graduated, and I went from high school, and I went to the best university school that we had in Puerto Rico for engineering. And that's the least thing I could do for my mom, just because of all the sacrifices that she did. And I remember the very first week of college, like my world shifted. And it was because I met who today is my wife, Mireille. The rush I felt when I saw her for the very first time, I could not describe, but it was something that I could not make any sense out of it. Now, we did meet at a bar, and the drinking age in Puerto Rico is 18. So I don't know if that had to do anything with that, but that's just a reality. Now, the following weeks, I made my job to pursue this girl. And I remember to this day, on October 28th, 1998, I received a pager message. Now, I don't know if you guys know what a pager is, but this is before email, so I could not reply back, text back, say like, hey, yeah, these things were like huge, at least mine was, and I would carry it here, and I was feeling so cool with my pager. It was so big that it looked like a microwave. I was carrying a microwave around, and so I got a message from her and says, Juan, tenemos que hablar, es bien importante. And I was reading this, it was 10 p.m., and the problem was that I didn't have a car. It was the first year of college, I didn't have a car. And she lived about an hour away walking. So I was looking around, I'm like, oh my God, I need to get to this girl. And because she wants to talk to me, it's very important. So I was looking at all the dorm rooms of my friends, and all of a sudden I saw some car keys that were shining there. They were like right there, and I try to figure out where he was, and he was nowhere to be found. And I'm like, well, what do I do? But then they were so shining there. It was like right there. So yes, I stole a car for about 2 hours, and I drove to her place, and we talked, and that day we officially became novios, which is boyfriend and girlfriend. And it was amazing. It was a great night until I came back and I had to explain everything to my friend with a car. So I know you're also maybe watching this, Gabby. I'm sorry for this, and we talked this so many times. So now we can laugh about it. But yes. This was the first of many ways I continue pursue now my girlfriend. College was a lot of fun, and it also brought a lot of successes. I was able to go out drinking and partying the night before a test. I would wake up or kind of continue going into the test, sometimes without even sleeping. We'll nail the test, and then we'll go out to the beach because, hey, we live in Puerto Rico. We have the beach right there. So, and all of that, I would get A's all across. So I had a beautiful girlfriend. I had my first, I had a lot of things that happened. The other thing that happened was I did an internship in P&G when I was a junior in college. I was able to leave that internship with a written full-time offer. And guys, I had 3 semesters left of school. So I was able to go, the only thing I needed to do is just to pass the classes, and I already had a full-time job. So that all of these successes, I was checking all of those boxes. I was checking all of those boxes of success at school, and but there was a problem, and the problem was that everything was going so well that I left God in a box labeled "Open in the case of emergency." I attended church on Sundays just to check that box. I was not even praying for that matter. I often forgot to pray. And I became stagnant in my closeness with God as I was thriving on the things of this world. And folks, that is a warning that is everywhere in the Bible. But one of the proverbs that reads, that I really found very inspirational for me, is Proverbs 22:3, which says, "A prudent man sees danger and takes refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it." And that's exactly what happened to me. You see, when things are going so well, you tend to feel like you can do things on your own, that on your own effort. And you often forget about God. And what happens is that when things actually go wrong, you don't have that foundation that you can rely on anymore. So real life happened to us. My wife and I, after graduating in 2004, we got married, and we moved from our Caribbean island where people would go to vacation to Cincinnati, Ohio, in the west side. And I know, right? And here's the thing. When I came here, I was like so blown away because La Plaga was here. It was like the end of the world. I thought it was, I don't know if you guys know what cicadas here are. It was like, I thought it was in Egypt. I'm like, what's going on? I mean, there's like the plague is going on. There's like all these insects flying around. I did not sign up for any of this. And I don't remember seeing any of these things in any recruiting video from P&G. So if you don't know what cicadas are, dude, they're coming back in 2 to 3 years, so in all its glory, so just brace yourself. It's going to be awesome. So with P&G, my wife started to travel a lot at the very beginning. So her first role required her to travel to a plant, and we would only see each other every 2 weeks on the weekend. So 3 days out of every 17 days, we would actually see each other. So if you're a newlywed and you move from your hometown to a new place that you don't know about with all these insects flying around, if you just bought a new house for the very first time, you're just starting to kind of build on your marriage, and you can only see each other the very first, for 3 days every 17 days, that's not a recipe for success. Now, we did try to make it work. However, I started focusing on the things of this world. I started focusing on my work, on my friends, on my brand new sports car that I was able to buy with the money that we had, and I completely neglected my wife when she needed me the most. You see, we got into a cycle of a downward spiral of neglect and criticism, and we hurt each other so much and in so many ways that I'm very ashamed to even just speak in here, but anything that you're thinking right now, we probably did to each other. We eventually, all of this led to us separating 4 years into our marriage for what ended up being 7 months. I went and I was staying with a friend of mine. She was staying in our house. And I did a lot of self-reflection then and a self-understanding. And by that time, it was 2008. By that time, my papung was passed away. And I remember to this day just writing letters to him because, again, he was the only father figure that I had. I had no example of what a husband would need to be. So I was writing letters to him just to kind of get my thoughts out and hoping that he would somehow listen to that. But what I knew is that I did not have a marriage problem. I had a God problem. You see, I didn't have a true relationship with God, and I didn't have Jesus as my rock and my center. I still had him in that box of open the case of emergency, and for the life of me, I could not figure out how to open it. I kept trying to fix things on my own. So I started reading the Bible during these 7 months, and like anybody that starts reading the Bible, I started at the very beginning. It's a book, right? So you start at the beginning, at least I thought. And not even 3 pages into the book, the first major insight just came to me, where it says that we are created in God's image, both male and female. He created us. So let me address the men in the room for a moment. Guys, this is very important. God's image is both male and female, so the union of marriage is the closest representation of his power on earth. And when we neglect women, like the way that I was neglecting my wife, we're missing half of the identity and the character of God in our lives. We don't have the fullness of God by doing that in our marriage. So I remember the day that God actually met me in the middle of all that mess. And I was back in Puerto Rico for vacation. I was with my mom, her husband, my brother, and my grandma. And I started having this vision of life without my wife. My family was not complete. She was missing. So I called her desperately and crying and explaining all these things to her. And eventually, after a few weeks, when I got back from that vacation back into Cincinnati, we started to try. We started to date again. We started to pray with each other. We started to bring God in the middle of our marriage. And even though we did not started, when we got back together, we did not have any feelings for each other, eventually the feelings came back. So we understood that love is a choice and not necessarily a feeling. So we chose love. We shifted from a downward spiral of neglect and criticism to an upward cycle of love and respect. I surrendered my marriage to God. So we started to put God front and center. And so the ways that God worked in our marriage are amazing, and my life changed forever. So I kind of want to give you a few highlights of what happened since then. So after 6 years of marriage, we finally began to enjoy marriage for the very, very first time. After 6 years, a couple of years later, we became parents of 2 beautiful girls, and we also became more intentional in knowing God and growing spiritually and building ourselves with each other and God. We found community, and that's so important. We found community of believers and godly couples that support the well-being of our marriage to this day, back then and to this day still. I got baptized together with a young man I mentored in man camp, a process that has taught me to be a father to others, even though I grew up without one. I even had the opportunity to baptize my wife and together renew our commitment with God and with each other while we were in Israel last year. And eventually all of this led to a renewed purpose. Now my family is a family on mission. We're #Team Bonilla. So today I co-lead Juntos, and Juntos, if you don't know what it is a Spanglish group that we have as part of Crossroads as well. And we grow with each other in community as we serve the community as well. My wife also leads a subgroup of that called Juntitas at our house every week, and I've seen so many walls just kind of break down on my house because of that. So guys, there is hope. There is hope. And one of the things, my wife and I went through hell and back. So if we did it, I know that there is hope. And one of the most favorite promises that I get from the Bible is in Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. So there is hope. So I'm going to leave you with these things. Guys, stay vigilant. If things are going well, keep God in the middle of that and be thankful for that. Don't put him in a box like I did. This is not on our effort. This is with God. My marriage was saved because of God, not because of me. If you're married, and again, men, if you're married, be humble enough to be the first person to choose love. Don't wait for her to do it. Be a man and do it yourself and be the first person to choose to serve your spouse. And also just take advantage of all the resources that we have here. I mean, we have camps coming up that are already open for sign up. Me and my wife participated in couples camp. It was amazing. And the West Side is getting a treat this week because you're getting a context of what you will see next week, as we are also featured, my wife and I, in couples camp. It just happens that God works that way. So And also, there's Real Marriage on-site group, and me and my wife are already signed up for that. Right now, luckily, my marriage is thriving, but we cannot just stop working on it. So again, we're keeping God in the center of our marriage, so we're signing up, and we want to participate out of that. And engaging community. There's crossroads.net/connect, so you can figure out if there's anybody from Crossroads living around you, so you can connect in the groups as well. So you can join juntos if you want. We're even though we're Spanglish speaker, we welcome everybody. Join us. You can search us in Facebook. And pray, guys. Pray is just a conversation with God, and He does listen. So finally, be brave and be humble. Dare to take God out of that open, in the case of emergency box, and make Him the center of your life. And that is hard. That is very hard, because even preparing for this talk, I was freaking out. I was so anxious, because I don't do this for a living. I'm not mad. I don't do this for a living, and I was freaking out. But I caught myself that I was trying to do this on my own effort, and I was not allowing God to lead me here. So it is hard, but it is so indispensable for breakthrough. And I want to thank you guys for being so graceful to listen to my testimony. Thank you.